Do you want to see a real GED writing example to help you pass GED Language Arts? Then stick around. Hi, this is Parker from Test Prep Champions teaching you how to pass the GED fast, and you get started by clicking subscribe down below. So I'm really excited to share another GED writing example from a real GED test taker, and there's a lot to learn from this one. So I want you to follow along here, and as you do so, let me know down below in the comments what you're learning here. What are you going to take away from this essay to use in your own writing? That's what I want you to think about. Let's get started. So let's talk about the prompt here. So basically there were two emails that served as our passages here. In the one email, the CEO of the company is arguing that installing a new filtering software to block inappropriate and social media websites should be installed. And the second passage is an employee that's responding to the CEO, and this employee is arguing that the internet filtering software should not be installed. And the task here is to analyze the arguments presented in the two emails and develop an argument that explains how one position is better supported than the other. And I'm going to put a link in the description to where you can read these two passages if you'd like to. But it's not necessary to get the most out of this exercise. So when I teach the GED essay, I teach the 5-paragraph essay approach, which is the best way to maximize your score. And it starts off by writing an introductory paragraph, then 3 body paragraphs, then ending with a conclusion, and you want to use 3 to 7 sentences per paragraph to maximize your score. Alright, so let's go right through this now, starting with our introductory paragraph. So first, I want to check a few grammar things here in your introductory paragraph. So I noticed that you have a sentence where you say here, it says, productivity and waste the company's time, comma, however. Now, what I want you to notice here is that this is a very massive sentence, right? Because you've got, it starts with, up here with Niagara Equipment Corporation, and then it goes through company's time, comma, however, comma, and then you keep going on until employees happier, all right? And so I think that this sentence is a little bit too massive, so I think we could turn this into 2 separate sentences. So what I would do is, after time, I'd put a period, then I would capitalize that H and just start a new sentence there. And so I think that would make this a lot cleaner and easier to read, so we don't have such a massive sentence here. And so the next thing I've marked here is where you have, to the internet increases productivity level. So it should say the, so it should say increases the productivity level. Now if it was just increases productivity, that would be okay, but since it's increases productivity level, we need the word the in between increases and productivity. And then also where you have makes the employees happier, you have an apostrophe S here, so you have an apostrophe between employee and the letter S, and that will not be necessary here. So here are some examples of apostrophes, and so if we were to just say keeping things the same will make the employees happier, we don't need an apostrophe here. So an apostrophe is used to show possession, okay, so for possession, right, so the employees don't own happier, right, happier is a feeling, but if we say keeping things the same will increase the employee's happiness. All right, happiness is something that you can have, so we would want to put an apostrophe S in this case. All right, so the difference between this first case here, where I have the apostrophe, where it's just employee apostrophe S, versus employees with the apostrophe after the S, is that with the apostrophe before the S, it's just one employee. So if we're talking about just one employee and that person being happy, we would use an apostrophe before the S. But that's not the case here. We're talking about multiple employees, so we would thus put the apostrophe after the S if you were to do it this way. But since you're talking about happier, you're not talking about happiness, then you don't even need your apostrophe. So we're going to get rid of that. Okay, and so the last thing I want to look at here is your sentence where you say the company should have trust over the employees that they hire. So here, all right, we want to change the verb form of the word trust. So we can change it to have trusted over, or we can change it to just trust and get rid of the words have and over. So I'm going to do that here, and then we'll just have trust, so it should just read, should trust the employees that they hire. All right, and so if you're having trouble with verb tenses, I'll put a link down below to a video to help with word tenses. Okay, so here is the version with the suggestions that I have incorporated here into the essay, so you can pause the video and take a longer look at this if you want to. But if not, let's keep going here. So now we want to look at the introduction. So let's break down the introductory paragraph. And a good introductory paragraph should start off with a topic sentence that introduces the topic and just tells the reader what the essay is going to be about. And then it also should identify the two positions. So you could do author A's position in one sentence and then author B's position in another sentence. And then end with what's most important here is your claim about which position is best supported. This is called a thesis statement. Okay, so let's see for the audience at home that's watching this, all right, how do you want to start each essay? You want to start your essay by writing a what kind of sentence? So if you were just listening, then you'll know that you want to start your essay by writing a topic sentence. Okay, so now let's take a look here at your topic sentence. And so I've highlighted in green your topic sentence here. So you say Niagara Equipment Corporation will be enforcing a new policy for employees restricting internet usage at work. So what I like about this topic sentence is that you have told me clearly what the essay is going to be about. So you're informing the reader about what the essay is going to be about. So good work with that. But one thing that I want you to think about here is injecting more of a feeling of debate into your topic sentence here. All right, so you want to also set the stage for the fact that there are multiple viewpoints on the debate over whether or not internet should be restricted for the people at work. So you can do that right in your topic sentence. And so I have some topic sentence formulas here, and these are just guidelines, and these can be useful for the audience members watching this as well as for you. But basically, these are some ways that you could kind of inject that feeling of debate into your topic sentence, which is really a good thing to do because the whole purpose of this is to debate the two emails and which one you think is the stronger position. So it would make sense to start off with a topic sentence that really tells the reader that there is a debate here, that there's controversy. So you could say something like, Niagara Equipment Corporation will be enforcing a new policy for employees, which is a controversial issue, or which is controversial. You could also say something like, there's much debate about Niagara Equipment Corporation's new policy for employees that will restrict their internet usage at work. All right, you could also say, there are different viewpoints on Niagara Equipment Corporation's new policy that will restrict internet usage at work. Something like that. These are just some examples I made up off the top of my head, but I would urge you to think about that. Think of how you can kind of make this sense of controversy or sense of debate built into your topic sentence more. But other than that, you did a solid job here with your topic sentence because you're telling the reader exactly what the topic is going to be about. So now let's look at your statements of the author's positions, or the statements of the positions that are in both of the emails here. All right, and so you can do it in two separate sentences, or you can do it in one sentence, however you'd like to do it here. So I've highlighted this. So for everyone watching right now, for our audience members, what do you think? What would you change here? If this was your essay, would you leave it how it is, or would you change this? What do you guys think? Well, I think that you actually did a great job with this. I think that there's not much I would change here, but there's one thing that I want you to note here. All right, and so we always want to note who's on which side. So for the ban, right, so for the restriction of the internet usage, we have Justine Timmons, who is the CEO, and we also assume that the management of the Niagara Corp is on her side as well. All right, and then the email against the ban is written primarily by Honoria Bell, who is the chief designer at the company, and also for 53 employees who signed saying that they agree with Bell's email here. So the only thing that I would want you to take a look at here is where you say, however, the 53 undersigned employees believe that the policy should not be enforced. And you're saying the right thing because that is what the 53 employees believe. However, it's also Honoria Bell, so I would make sure that I would try to state Bell's name here. So don't be afraid to name names. You could also talk about Justine Timmons here too, right? You could also say Justine Timmons from Niagara Equipment Corp believes that visiting, you could say that as well. Although it does seem from the passage that it is the whole management, so it's fine either way, but I would definitely include Honoria Bell here because it's not just the 53 employees, it's Honoria Bell and those 53 employees, so really it would be 54 employees total. So I would just include her name there. So don't be afraid to name names, but other than that, you did a great job with this. It's clear to me that there are two different positions on the issue, and it's clear to me who is on which side, other than Honoria Bell, who I would include her because it's her and those 53 other letter writers, but you got the basic points down. So now we have your own claim about which position is best supported, also known as your thesis statement. So let's take a look here. I've highlighted in green your thesis statement. So you say, I believe that the policy should not be enforced because the company should trust the employees that they hire. So for our audience members and those watching at home right now, what do you guys think? What do you think? Would you leave this topic sentence? Would you change it? Would you improve it? Do you think it's perfect the way it is? What's your opinion? How would you change this? So that's just something to think about as we go through this. And so let me tell you here what I would change here. So what I want you to remember here is that the prompt is telling you, remember, the better argued position is not necessarily the position with which you agree. The task should take approximately 45 minutes to complete. So the important part here is that I would avoid using the word I in your thesis statement because it's an algorithm that's grading your test. It's not a person, so it's kind of an algorithm that's grading your test, some kind of computer algorithm, and no one knows how exactly it works. The GED testing service people kind of keep this under secret wrap, so no one knows how the algorithm works, but I would avoid using the word I in your thesis statement because you don't want the algorithm to think that you're writing about the position that you agree with personally. So that's why I would take out that word I believe. I wouldn't say that because the algorithm might judge your essay as saying that, this is just what you believe. It's not necessarily what's best supported. And also, I would make sure that you say something about, like, this position is best supported by the evidence. So that way you leave less room for the algorithm to misinterpret what you mean. So just try those two things. I would eliminate I believe, and I would also just make it clear that this position is best supported by the evidence. So I would say something like this. So here's just kind of an example of a formula you could use. You could say, while both writers make good points, author A provides a better supported argument than author B. So this is just a general example that you can try to apply and adjust to whatever essay you get. All right, so here's an example of how you could apply it in this case. You could say something like, while both Timmons and Bell make good points, Bell's position is better supported by the evidence. And then you could say, you could list a couple reasons why right here. You could say, Bell's position is better supported by the evidence because she uses more facts and surveys, but you don't necessarily have to. You could just leave it like this. And you do go on in your essay, I'll say this, I'll spoil this for those watching at home right now. You do go on and you do an excellent job with using evidence in your piece here. So I know that you're not just giving us your opinion or your belief on which position is better. You are actually using evidence to make your claim, but I would just look at the way that you worded this thesis statement because the algorithm could interpret this when you say I believe, and the fact that you're not mentioning here that the position is better supported by the evidence and that's why it's superior, the algorithm could misinterpret that, and I don't want you to lose points. Okay, so let's move on now to your body paragraph. And so one thing that I want to note here is that you had basically on the document you had one introductory paragraph and then you had a body paragraph, and it was kind of all meshed together there. So I wanted to break that body paragraph up into 3 different body paragraphs and a conclusion. So I had that one big block of text and I've split that up, and I'll show you my examples of what I, just from reading through it, what I thought you could do to split it up. But remember, you do want to have those 3 body paragraphs and a separate conclusion. Now, you may have submitted it that way just for the sake of time, just to do the writing exercise, and that's totally cool, but I just want to make sure everyone watching this realizes that you're going to want 3 separate body paragraphs, and you're going to want one extra conclusion. So a way that you could write a body paragraph would be a topic sentence in which you explain what you're going to argue in that body paragraph. Then you do an explanation where you just explain what you mean, and you can do a refutation in which you explain why the other author is wrong. Basically, you say why their argument is less credible. All right, and you don't have to always do a refutation, but it can help. So let's look at what you did here. So the first thing I would change here is I would just add a transition word here. All right, so where you say Niagara Equipment Corporation, I would just put a simple transition word here. And so these are some good transition words that will help your score. And these will help your score because the algorithm is going to look for these. So you could just say first, comma, second, comma, in addition, in the first place. And these are just some examples here. But I would use first. I think that would be a good way to do it. And then also where you say there are studies showing, I would just change that to studies show. So I would just have it say new policy because studies show that employees are happier when they have the freedom to browse the internet. It's just a much cleaner way to say it than there are studies showing, and it'll help with the flow. So this is the way that I would change it here. So you would have first Niagara Equipment Corp should, okay, and then et cetera, et cetera. And then I have one last thing at the end here because I think that you had kind of a long paragraph here, so I wanted to split your work up into multiple paragraphs because I think that you can stick with this one point here. So your point here is that basically saying that the new policies are not good because the employees won't be as happy, and then you show that there's a 2019 study or a 2009 study that provides evidence showing this. So I would explain this point a little bit more here, and then that way you'll have a separate body paragraph here that will be a strong body paragraph. So you could go on to say maybe employees who are happy are less likely to leave Niagara Corp to look for a new job, or those employees will be more productive at work, just something like that here. And the reason is because I think that if you just explain what you mean a little bit more here, or just expand on this point about why this is good. Why is this good for Honoria Bell's position in those 53 signers? You know, why does this study here from 2009 prove that her position is right and why the corporation's position is wrong? All right, but other than that, this is a very, very solid job with your evidence here. And so, okay, so then you could say something like this. For example, here's one way to do it that I thought of. You could say something. You could just end it by saying something like this. This directly refutes Timmons' point that internet browsing will make the work environment more hostile. So I thought that would be a good way to explain it here. And you're also doing a refutation, which would also make your essay stronger here, because if you remember in the passage, there's a section where Timmons talks about how the internet browsing and web browsing can make employees more hostile and more bitter and more angry at each other, something like that. So you could say that, you know what, there's 2019 or 2009, I keep saying 2019 for some reason. There's a 2009 study with evidence showing that workers who check their internet occasionally are happier. So this directly refutes the point that they're more hostile because they're checking the internet. So that would be a way you could do that there. Okay, so then I would split your paragraph up so that the next part of your paragraph where you say another study, I would just start that off as its own paragraph. So you could use this here as a topic sentence. So you say another study from the National University of Singapore found that web surfing refreshed employees, making them more productive, not less. So this could be a separate point, right? This could be a separate topic sentence about how a separate study is showing that they could be more productive that way, right? So you could have in your first paragraph, your topic sentence would be that basically talking about how employees are going to be happier without the policy. Then this could be employees are going to be more productive without the policy. So see how we would have two different topics here, okay? And so then you could expand on this and you could say something like this, and this is just an idea I had. You could say something like, this study directly refutes Timmons' argument that web surfing lowers productivity. Timmons' statement that, quote, workers who are distracted by checking their social media sites are clearly not giving their full attention to their jobs, end quote, is an opinion. Her argument is less credible because she doesn't cite evidence to support this point, all right? And so you could just do something like that as an example here to kind of expand on this topic sentence here. Okay, so then let's look here to your third body paragraph. So again, you had these all as one big long paragraph. So I'm just looking for ways that we can break that up into 3 paragraphs without too much extra work on your part, because you'll want to have it done that way on your test. So I've highlighted job and however because we can split this up into 2 sentences again, and actually really 3 sentences, because this whole thing right now looks like one big sentence here. So you have this whole thing as one sentence, so you could actually split this up into a couple sentences, and that's just a way to really fill out your body paragraphs, right? So without adding too much extra work to you, if you just shorten up some of these sentences a little bit and look for ways that you can take a really long sentence like this one and just turn it into at least 2 sentences or multiple sentences, I think that that's going to really help your essay score. So here's just an example of how you could do it and how I would recommend doing it. So you could say, while on the job, period, however, that equals to about 1 per week, period. This is similar to taking a walk to the cooler or chatting about the game last night. So see here how we've taken one massive sentence and then we've just now, without really making that much extra work for you, we've just split this up into 3 different sentences. So you've got basically a whole body paragraph here that could be a valid body paragraph, all right? So then the only other thing that I recommend is I would recommend clarifying a little bit more what you mean here. So this point in green here, I think there's a lot of potential here where you say, however, that equals to about 1 hour per week. There's a lot of potential here in what you're saying. But so if we go back to the essay here, I've highlighted this part here, which is really interesting from the essay here, where it says, first, there's more to the salary.com statistic than you cite that meets the eye. Most of the cyber slackers in the survey surf the internet for only 1 hour per week. This is comparable to taking a walk to the water cooler or chatting about last night's game with a colleague. So I would like to see you explain a little bit more what you mean. So where are you getting this number from? So when you just say here, however, that equals to about 1 hour per week. And so the point that you're trying to make here is very good, but I think that you almost need a better sentence here to kind of connect that. So you could, say something in this, like, you have your first sentence here, but then you could say that the Niagara Corporation cites this study, but this survey from salary.com is not credible, or that Ms. Timmons doesn't mention the whole survey results, and that Honoria Bell tells us here that The survey goes on to say that this is only equal to about 1 hour per week, which would be similar to taking a walk to the cooler or chatting about the game last night. So I would just split it up like this. So you, instead of having that big massive sentence, you've got 3 sentences here, and then I would just add one more sentence here that just explains like where you got that idea from, that it's equal to 1 hour per week, because it makes perfectly logical sense once I see the passage here, right? But we have to assume that the reader or the algorithm, right, isn't going to be familiar with that passage. Okay, so assuming, let's just say for a reader, a real person that would be reading this, you know, as I read this, it wasn't 100% clear where you got that from when you say about 1 hour per week. But then when you look at the passage, it's very logical. All right, your point here is good. So I would just add another sentence here, just stating that, you know, in Honoria Bell's or in Bell's and the 53 signers, the 53 undersigners email, all right, they state that the Niagara Corporation survey has more to it than meets the eye. The survey points out that it would only be about 1 hour per week of extra time, something like that, just so that it's clear where that comes from. But other than that, this would be a very, very solid paragraph here. So in conclusion here, the only other thing is, like, I would turn this last part here where you have, while Niagara Equipment Corporation makes an excellent point, I would just turn this into your conclusion. So I would say, in conclusion, comma, lowercase w, and then instead of makes an excellent point, I would say makes some excellent points, just to give them more, just to be more generous to their position here. And then also, you could also turn this part again into multiple sentences here. So when you have their argument, comma, while the undersigned employees have multiple surveys and studies showing, I think that you could turn that into another sentence. So you could just, after argument, put a period, then say, on the other hand, comma, the undersigned employees. And then one other thing that I'm noticing right now is that you also won't need this apostrophe here. So we'll get rid of that apostrophe here. And then I think that this would be a good conclusion here. So you did a lot of things that I really like here. And so some highlights are your organization, especially of your introduction. So your introduction was organized very, very well. It was very clear what your topic was, what the 2 positions were, and which position you would be arguing is best supported in the paragraph. So you did a very, very solid job organizing your introduction. You also used evidence from the passage. You actually have done a phenomenal job citing the evidence from the passage and restating it in your own words and using it appropriately. So you actually did a phenomenal job with that. And overall, you had relatively few grammatical mistakes. There were a couple things you did with the apostrophes that would be incorrect, so that's why I gave you that slide at the beginning to review that just gives you a couple examples of how to use apostrophes. But other than that, there were very few grammatical mistakes. I didn't see any punctuation mistakes here. I didn't see really any comma mistakes. So your punctuation was very good. And so you had a few grammatical mistakes. So just a few ways to improve. One would be to vary your sentence structure. So that's one thing that that's a really easy way to get points, is to vary your sentence structure. So it's okay to have long sentences some of the time. But you want to have a mix of long sentences and short, kind of punchy sentences. So every now and then, just take some of those longer sentences and look for ways to break them up into shorter sentences. And so that will help you have varied sentence structure, or varied sentence length, that should say, not structure. That should say length, varied sentence length. And also, you'll want to just make sure that you've included 3 body paragraphs in a conclusion, rather than like an introduction in like one bigger paragraph, or at least that's how I saw it in the document that you gave me. But other than that, just make sure, again, you've got varied sentence length, and you've got those 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion in your introduction. And then the only other suggestion I had would be to just take another look at your thesis statement and just make sure that it's clear that you're picking the position because it's best supported by the evidence. And the way that you used evidence here in this piece suggests that you understand that. And I think that you understand that, but just remember, it is an algorithm that's grading you, so you don't want to give any indication here that you're just picking a position because it's the position that you agree with. You want to make sure that it's clear that you're picking a position to take because the evidence supports it. So great work with this essay. I wish you the best of luck on the real thing.